The question is just completely irrelevant. But when you, as an American, and when you do your bachelor right after high school, right? So at 18, 17, 18.
Yeah, 18.
Is it like hard to choose like what to study? Because I think here, like most people start university at somewhere between 22 and 25, and it's still super hard to decide what you're going to study. So I keep thinking like at 18, I know as opposed to like here, when you start something, you already have your complete degree that's like really aimed in a very certain direction. But I know in the US, like you take different kind of classes at first, right? Like the first year, like you can mix and match.
Right. Yeah. Here in America, your first year generally is all like prerequisites, so it's just a mix of a bunch of different things. And I'm sure for some people it helps them figure out what they want to do, while others it's more like a chore because they might already know what they want to do and then don't want to take those other classes. For me, so it's interesting. My path to research had like really nothing to do with what I was aiming for when I was an undergrad student. So I initially was a business major because in high school I was really involved with like student organizations that had to do with like marketing and business and that whole thing. So I thought I was going to go on and be like a marketing professional, that sort of thing. But actually in my first year I was a business major and nearly failed economics. So then I was like, and that was a required
I relate
prerequisite.
I almost failed economics too.
Well, aside from it being a tough subject in general, I made the mistake of being like, oh, I'll take a 7:30 a.m. class, like no, because in high school, my high school the start time was around like 7:15. So I was like, well, I did it in high school, I could do it in college. Totally different. That does not work the same way. And it doesn't help the fact that you have a little bit more freedom where obviously like your professors aren't going to try and keep track of you. So if you don't show up to class, like that's it. So I probably missed half of my classes because I wouldn't wake up for it. I was too tired. So after nearly failing economics, I was like, well, I need to switch my major because there's no way I'm going to take it again. And a friend had suggested that I look into a communications major. Had no idea what that even meant, but I was like, sure, why not? And looking at the credits, it was very similar as business. So I was like, well, if I can graduate like sooner than later, then that's great. And then I'll find whatever job I need. That sometimes doesn't work out for people, but luckily it worked out for me. And so eventually realized with a communications degree, I can work in public relations. So even before I graduated from college, I was able to land my first job as a PR professional, and that's what I've been doing since then. So I've been working in PR and communications for the last like maybe 9 years or so. So I've represented like I've worked in the private and public sector. So I started off working in entertainment and hospitality events sort of thing, and then moved into public sector. So I was working communications in like education and economic development and that sort of thing. So which is a lot of fun, but I think that's why I in PR, I'm so busy and like don't really get a break. But on the side, I still loved like my boy bands and like all those things. So I really wanted to go back and do my master's eventually, and then did my research, like I said, while working full time. So I think the great thing about that is I have my work, and then when I want to take a break from my work, I have my research, and it almost sometimes feels more like a hobby than a chore. Because I hear stories all the time about PhD students and master's students who are so miserable, and I hope that that's not the case for a lot of people, but it's certainly a reality for some. But I don't really get to experience that because I love what I do, and it like I said, when it feels like a hobby and you're like passionate about it, like it's all good, and so it's worth the lack of sleep for me. But yeah, so in choosing a major, it's interesting here in the US, and I'm sure it's a difficult decision for a lot of people. I know on average, like I heard a stat somewhere where on average like US students they change their majors at least like 3 times.
Wow.
So yeah, so I know that there's a lot of people that enter university and still don't know what they want to do, but that's totally fine, right? Like,
yeah, definitely. Especially like at 18, how could you know?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you have people that graduate and get their degree and then realize that's not even what they want to do, and so it's tough. But as long as people know that's okay. Like making different decisions, like even during college or even after, is like totally fine to change your mind for sure.
Yeah, I think the major issue is in the US, like the college experience is so expensive.
Yeah.
That's where I think it feels like, because here university is kind of cheap. It's like for the good ones, it's $3,000 a year.
Really? Wow. That's
To-
crazy. Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's so rare to get here.
yeah, that's the good ones. The bad ones cost more.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Interesting how that works.
yeah, because like the university are the good, and they're funded by the government, and the colleges are private, and they're considered lesser than. Like the bad professors, or it's like if you go with a degree from a college versus a degree from a university, they would take the university hands down.
Yeah.
So the university is actually very cheap, and the college is, and it's not that much more. Like it's more expensive.
Yeah.
It's not crazy expensive, even if you do choose to go to college if you're not accepted to the university. So here, like changing your major is a lot. It doesn't have that economic instability that I think colleges in the U.S. Add to that.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, that's. I'm sure people would love to pay that money here for a university.
Yeah, it's like, but still, like a quarter of the people here change major after the first year. But like I said, like here, like for example, I chose engineering, like and a specific, like I chose material engineering, and immediately from the get-go, the classes I took were for a degree in material engineering. Like there was no extra stuff. I didn't take anything from other like from other majors or anything. It was the right math classes, the right physics classes. And when I finished, I actually the last year I worked at Intel as like what was I? Like I did something like with yield analysis, a lot of statistics, and I like to understand if a processor is good or not. And you don't know, but creating an Core i7 is actually takes 982 steps, and each one of those can be faulty. So like you analyze like each step, and you do graphs and stuff. So I worked there, and I was like, okay, so this is engineering. I need research in my life. And then I went to research, and I do like I work with materials for green energy applications.
Awesome. Yeah. I have a lot of respect for engineers. I know what you guys do. It's a lot of hard work, and my boyfriend's an engineer, and I don't understand half of it. And so I know how hard all of you guys work. So
I feel like, but if I were to do like what you do, or what you do like in bachelor and stuff, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I think it's also like different people fit different things. I don't think there's one that's like harder. It's just for me, yours would be harder.
Right. I appreciate that. Sometimes in my head, I'm like, this feels like it's like too easy. Like, and that's why I look at people like you, and like I said, my boyfriend's an engineer, and I'm like, wow, like you're all doing such cool things for the world. Like that's awesome. So
yeah, but I think like it's all like relative, because for me, like what you do, I don't think I would be able to do that well. I would be able to do it, just not well. So it's all also like I think here, from what I've talked to people in the US, like there aren't a lot of women in engineering, and here, like in my department, we're 50% women.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
And even in masters, there were more women than men. In PhD, we're again the same. In at a very specific engineering field that have more men, but a lot of them has like an equal amount, or even like chemical engineering has more women. So here it's like very you don't feel so much as an outlier as I feel like you would.
Yeah, there's definitely way less women in engineering here. We need more women engineers for sure here in the US. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.